that promote transparency. The Senate's work to make our budget process more transparent and accountable should not end with this concurrent resolution alone. This is not a panacea to the deeper problems that have long affected the way we craft and approve our national budget. It is a step forward, but one that must be followed through with further and more strategic reforms. As such, I wish to highlight key issues that must be addressed along with existing measures aimed at meeting the call for a more effective budget process. First, this concurrent resolution complements the transparency measures proposed by Senate Joint Resolution Number 1, filed by the members of the Senate Minority Bloc, which seeks to open all bicameral conference committee deliberations to the public. This reform would close a significant gap that the concurrent resolution, important as it is, cannot by itself resolve. For too long, key stages of the national budget process, especially the bicameral conference committee deliberations, have taken place out of public view. This has created perceptions and at times the reality of last-minute changes and decisions made without plenary scrutiny or interpolation. As a result, the budget is often viewed as being shaped by limited decision makers rather than thorough, open, and inclusive deliberations. As such, live stream access, the publication of a matrix comparing House and Senate versions, and the release of comprehensive minutes should be standard operating procedures. These measures will help dismantle the culture of secrecy that has too often surrounded the bicameral process and restore fidelity to the Constitution's mandate of transparency and accountability. Transparency, however, must be matched with participation. That is why I also draw attention to the proposed people's participation in the National Budget Process Act filed by Senator Lacson and this representation. This measure institutionalizes the role of civil society organizations in the preparation and authorization of the national budget. It guarantees at least 30% representation for marginalized sectors, ensures access to agency performance data, and allows CSOs to provide policy critiques. These safeguards will give communities, especially those most affected by government spending, an active voice in how public funds are planned and allocated. Openness and participation are not enough if we continue to measure success only by pesos spent or projects completed, rather than by the real and lasting changes they create. Every budget season, agencies face one simple but fundamental question: how did your initiatives improve the lives of the Filipino people? Filipinos deserve to know not just what was delivered, but what changed because it was done. Yet the answers we often hear, families reached, roads paved, beneficiaries enrolled, speak only of outputs, not outcomes. They tell us about activity, not impact. Did free Wi-Fi in schools improve student learning? Did livelihood training translate to sustained income? Did new rural clinics lower maternal deaths or expand access to treatment? Too often, these questions are neither asked at the start or measured along the way, nor answered at the end. Without credible evidence, accomplishments become echoes of effort rather than the proof of change. So the gap lies not in intent, but in the absence of a results-based system that tracks, measures, and applies lessons. For decades, the lack of a systematic, integrated monitoring and evaluation framework has hampered our ability to assess effectiveness. Reports rely on outputs, evaluations are inconsistent or unused, and findings rarely feed back into policy and budgeting. Funds are spent without a feedback loop for improvement. This matter cannot be overlooked anymore, and that is a reason why I've filed the National Results-Based Governance Act in this Congress. Your Honor, speak of the 30 to 60% loss to corruption, wastage, and substandard work in our flood control infrastructure. Now imagine if, instead of losing that much, we embedded a 3% allocation for results-based monitoring and evaluation in every project. Though small, this could safeguard projects, ensure real impact, and prevent far greater losses to the public purse. Measurement, however, depends on the availability of reliable data, which is why I also filed the Open Government Data Act. This measure seeks to embed knowledge management and transparency into the routine work of government, moving beyond the system that reacts only to requests for information or data. The need for this measure is clear to me because I've seen time and again how uneven and elusive government data can be. I recall a heated budget hearing where sectoral data suddenly became available upon request, complete with charts and reports. This was in stark contrast to ordinary days when agencies would claim that such information was unavailable, confidential, or buried in the bureaucracy. In my 4 Senate terms since 1998, including the several years as finance chair, we have witnessed this pattern repeatedly. Data emerges when budgets are on the line, but vanishes when it is most needed to shape policy, to inform the public, guide investments, or engage citizens. Under the proposed Open Government Data Act, agencies must consistently, periodically publish high-impact data sets in open, machine-readable formats, establish a central open data portal, and maintain a registry of withheld data to ensure accountability even when disclosure is lawfully restricted. This is a clear departure from the present system, where agencies often keep documents behind procedural barriers wherein the freedom of information process has institutionalized a form of red tape that hinders public access. Sa ganitong mga paraan, ang mga detalye ng programa, proyekto at mahalagang impormasyon ay maaari nating kilatisin at suriin ng lahat nang hindi na kailangan mangulit, manghingi, maghintay pa ng mabagal at malabong tugon mula sa ibang ahensya. Taken together, these measures and the current resolution before us will transform our budget process from a closed-door negotiation into a public exercise in democratic governance. Mr. President, it is time to take decisive steps towards greater openness in the budget process. Let us pass this concurrent resolution and ensure that complementary reforms are advanced so that transparency, participation, and accountability become the foundations of how we spend. A budget made in full public view, supported with results-based and open government data, will always advance the people's interest. The veil surrounding the budget process must be lifted, allowing every peso to be accounted for, observed, examined by the people. Salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Legarda. Noted and entered into the records. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished gentleman from the province of Davao, no other than Senator Christopher Bongo. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Go is recognized for his co-sponsorship speech. You may proceed, sir.
Mr. President, I rise to co-sponsor the concurrent resolution to strengthen the national budget process by adopting and enforcing transparency and accountability measures to ensure public access to information and allow public participation in the deliberations of the national budget. Mr. President, I laud this initiative led by Senate President Chiz Escudero and our chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Win Gatchalian. As you know, Mr. President, I had reservations on the BICAM report for the 2025 budget. In fact, I did not sign the BICAM report. Particularly, I am saddened by the zero budget given to PhilHealth. While we acknowledge that PhilHealth has still billions in reserve funds, as discovered and discussed in 5 hearings conducted by the Committee on Health last Congress, subsidy from the national government may still be needed to implement necessary reforms and improvements in its benefit packages. Kung meron man pong nabawa sa health, ay dapat po sa health ito mapunta. It has been my call for a participative budget process. Dapat talaga involve ang ating mga kababayan sa bawat proseso. Pera po ng taong bayan ang pinag-uusapan natin, kaya dapat alam nila at may partisipasyon sila sa proseso. Bawat piso ay mahalaga sa bawat Pilipino. This is in line with Section 28, Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution, which declares that the state adopts and implements a policy of full public disclosure of all its transactions involving public interest. Section 7, Article 3 of the Constitution provides that the right of the people to information on matters of public concern shall be recognized. It is for these reasons that I support this resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Go. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, last but not the least, to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished lady from Taguig and Pateros, no other than Senator Pia Cayetano. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized to co-sponsor the measure. You may proceed, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. President, I rise today to co-sponsor Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 4, which seeks to institutionalize greater transparency and accountability in our national budget process. The General Appropriation Act is one of the most important legislation that Congress annually passes. It reflects our priorities as a nation and the kind of future we envision for our people. I have been the Vice Chairman of the Committee on Finance, handling the budget of education for 6 years and the budget of health for 5 years. All of these debates have been open to the public, live-streamed and accessible to all. But in the final stages, the BICAM, it has not been treated the same way. And even I, as Vice Chairman of the Committee on Finance, only learned after the fact that the budget I proposed and approved by the Senate is changed in the BICAM. By mandating the timely and transparent release of budget documents, we are removing barriers and encouraging genuine public participation. An open budget process compels us as legislators and government alike to act with greater diligence, fairness, and integrity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Pia Cayetano. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. First to interpolate the measure, Mr. President, is our distinguished Minority Leader, Senator Tito Soto. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Soto is recognized for his interpolation and interjection. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the distinguished sponsor or any of the numerous sponsors answer some questions for clarification for the benefit of all, some points of the intent of the resolution? And just for the record, at the outset, I would like to place on record that this is indeed a very commendable resolution. As a matter of fact, I signed it, but I signed it with to amend, because I will be proposing amendments later when it comes to the period of amendments. So will the distinguished sponsor from the city of Valenzuela favor us with some answers, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, I would be more than, it's an honor for me to receive questions from our Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Honor, it is it's actually good to have an outward push by the Senate to include the public and give them a platform on the website to communicate, analyze, suggest, and give timely feedback. Now, I wonder what measures would be put in place so that it would not be abused by state or non-state actors. What would be the vetting process for the review of the feedback from the public?
Well, Mr. President, the reason why we included number 5, and let me just read, the public shall be given a platform on the websites of both the Senate and the House of Representatives to communicate their analysis, suggestions, and feedback on the national budget. So the concept here is we're completing the entire cycle, Mr. President. So with this resolution, we are now publishing information that will help the public analyze the budget, hopefully make suggestions, even criticisms if they feel that it should be criticized. But the basic concept here is information that will help them process and analyze the budget will be made available to them in readable format, no? Hindi lang yung picture. And to complete the cycle, they should have this mechanism to send us their analysis,
Feedback.
and this is through electronic form, which is the website, Mr. President. Of course, Mr. President, I appreciate the question of the minority leader that all of these feedbacks and questions and suggestions should be processed
Correct.
very carefully,
Correct.
because it might come from sources that are not credible, or sources that are not maybe they're not equipped in analyzing the budget. So since this will be reviewed by the Senate, we will be very careful in analyzing the feedbacks that we are going to get, Mr. President. So-
Yes, go ahead.
So in other words, we will not just take it hook, line, and sinker. We will definitely analyze the feedbacks that we will be getting. So we welcome feedbacks, but the feedback should also be credible and in line with the budget process, Mr. President.
Yes, so that there will be a vetting process on the feedback.
Yes, Mr. President.
Right.
Internally, since this will be through our email system, and this will not be published, no, for data privacy purposes. So in other words, the receiver, which is the Senate, will vet the feedbacks that we will be getting. We will process and vet that very carefully, Mr. President.
I like that phrase very carefully because I would like to be assured that no foreign entities or militant organizations will use the published information in a manner that might compromise our national security. So we would like to take that assurance from the sponsor.
Yes, Mr. President. We would, the Senate, through the Budget Office, the LBRMO, will be very careful also in terms of national security information, Mr. President. So we will also consult with them if there are items in the budget that are deemed harmful to our national security. Then we will also be very careful in publishing that. We will also consult with the executive regarding what items are those. As a rule, Mr. President, we want to publish all the budget items, but if there are national security concerns in those information, then we will be very careful in publishing those in our website.
All right. How about those who would want to participate but do not have easy access to Wi-Fi, smartphone, or a personal computer? Are there any other steps that would allow the public to participate without any form of technology? We can come up with more inclusive mechanism to allow them to have access?
Well, Mr. President,
Offline?
I'm sure you know that these materials are voluminous. Ang kakapal ho nila, like for example, the NEP is already 400 pages per volume, Mr. President. And we're talking about 4 volumes. The GAB is also the same, about 400 to 500 pages per volume. So making them available physically is possible, but not widely available. No? So for example, if you are living, let's say, in Visayas or Mindanao, it will be almost impossible to make those physical books available in those areas. So the most practical is to make them available online, no, in digital form, so that they can take a look at it anytime they want. They can download it, and most importantly, Mr. President, it's readable. No? Because when we were looking at the websites of different agencies, sinasabi nila it's uploaded, pero hindi mo naman mabasa, Mr. President, because the scanning, the technology they use is very low in resolution, and you cannot search the item. So in this resolution, we will make sure, or the resolution calls for a readable format, so that the public will have a convenient and easy way to look at the information, Mr. President.
Well, you mentioned, yes, indeed, volume, ano? And then it should be readable. But these documents are technical, and ordinary Pinoys might not understand. No? So there are complexities to the contents. Now, in order to achieve full transparency, these should not only be readily available but also understandable to everyone intending to view them. So how can the ordinary Juan in Juanas de la Cruz understand the process?
That's a very good question, Mr. President. Indeed, the ordinary Juan de la Cruz will have a very difficult time to understand this, the contents of the budget, Mr. President. Indeed, to be honest, it took me a while to understand the contents of the NEP, the GAB, and the other materials. Other than that, I have to read many materials. For example, the admin code on budgeting. I have to read that so that I will understand the process and the terminologies. So, Mr. President, I was thinking maybe the second step is to, I was analyzing the NEP. I don't know, and this, I would need a lot of suggestions from our colleagues. So how to probably reform the NEP itself, no, to make it understandable. For example, make it in tabular form, include graphs in the NEP itself, also in the GAB. So make it a layman format, Mr. President. But that I was thinking of that as a secondary step, Mr. President. So the first step is to upload it. The second is reform how we present the information so that when you open the book, you can easily absorb the contents of the book, Mr. President. Right now, admittedly, it's very technical.
So we do not expect that to happen in this budget.
Well, Mr. President, what I am expecting is a lot of the budget experts. There are a lot of budget experts, economists, the academe, and these people are well versed in the budget process, and they can also learn faster than an ordinary person. So I expect that these individuals will be interested to look at the budget, and we hope that they will also analyze the budget together when we are analyzing the budget. So in the immediate, in the next, when we do this, Mr. President, I expect that experts will be engaged. The next challenge, maybe the next step will be how do you engage ordinary Filipinos through a understandable layman format of the NEP and the GAB, Mr. President.
We will hold on to that.
Yes. Mr. President, I was also flagged that when the DBM transmit to us the NEP, they also transmit what they call the people's budget version. No? But typically, these are summary of the budget. No? May economic cluster, may social services cluster, and it's summarized. But of course, as we all know, the devil is in the details. No? And when you go into the details, that's where the NEP comes in. And it gets very technical. Alam naman natin yun, may expense class, may cost structure, and it gets really quite confusing if you don't know the terminologies and how it's divided and computed.
All right. Yes.
Okay. And Mr. President, I was also flagged by our technical staff that the people's budget. NEP ba ito? Is this the NEP? NEP ba ito? The NEP and the JA together with the summary is also translated into our major dialects like Ilonggo, Ilocano, Bisaya. So there's a friendlier version of the NEP being published by the DBM, Mr. President. So, but admittedly, it's a summary. It's not the book itself.
Yes. But is it readily available?
Yes, Mr. President. It's on the website of the DBM.
Okay. All right. May I call your attention to page 4 of the resolution. Page 4, number 9. Letter C. Bicameral Conference Committee report. It is under General Appropriations number 1. The following documents, including all annexes and attachments as may be applicable, shall be uploaded to both the websites of the Senate and the House of Representatives. A, BP 201 forms, etc., etc. B, GAB passed on third reading by the House, transmitted to the Senate, all good. C, bicameral conference committee report. Just the report? How about how it is done? Di ba? The devil is in how it is done.
Well, Mr. President, the concept that we are applying through this resolution is along the way, Mr. President, the public will now have the ability to follow because the information is already uploaded to the website. So they can follow the changes in the GAB, they can even follow the changes in the Senate committee report, they can even follow the changes in the Senate third reading version.
And how it is being done.
Yes.
Correct?
So pagpasok nila,
So-
Mr. President, sa bicameral conference committee, they already have a view of the disagreeing provisions between the House and the Senate. So that's what's important. Actually, Mr. President, what's important here is the information prior to the actual bicameral conference committee para masusundan nila if ever there are once again changes in the bicameral conference committee, masusundan nila yung changes because they have the information prior to the bicameral conference committee.
Okay.
So that's
I will wait for the period of amendments and I will propose an amendment to that effect now.
Yes,
All right.
Mr. President.
Let me just finish off with one or two more points. Just to clarify, does this resolution include agencies whose budget does not come from the GAA, like income-generating agencies, but whose funds are nonetheless public, but
transparency
ano yan? If we're talking of transparency, hindi ba dapat kasama yung mga kinikita nila katulad ng GAB,
PAGCOR.
Games and Amusement Board, PAGCOR,
PCSO.
PCSO, MTRCB, the Supreme Court.
No, Mr. President, since
Billion yun sa Supreme
Yeah,
Court.
I agree, Mr. President. Supreme Court makasali sa ano natin? Di ba kasali ang Supreme Court? Sinasabit diba sa atin? Supreme Court. Yeah. Mr. President, those GOCCs that you mentioned, they don't come to the Senate, to Congress, both houses, to authorize their budget, Mr. President, since they have a corporate-like body, Mr. President. It's their own board that approves their budget and their expenditures, Mr. President. So it does not include the GOCCs, Mr. President.
But they appear during budget
Only certain
because of their budget, no?
only certain GOCCs like PNOC, Mr. President, NEA, National Electrification Authority, but the other GOCCs, especially the ones created by the SEC, they don't come to the Senate, Mr. President. Like PAGCOR, di naman ho sila pumupunta dito.
So you're saying that in the GAA, whether it's transparency or not, the GAA-like incoming generating agencies whose funds are nonetheless public are not included in this transparency proposal of ours?
Well, Mr. President, because they're not, their budget is not being appropriated by Congress, and we're not authorizing their expenditures, so they don't come here, Mr. President. So they are being audited by COA, nevertheless, but they don't come to Congress to get their authorization on their budget. Only certain, Mr. President, like National Electrification Authority, which is a GOCC that comes here and requests for their budget. So we will publish their budget request, Mr. President.
Is there no chance for us to say that even though they do not pass through the GAA, but still those are public funds?
That's a very good suggestion, Mr. President.
Dapat sila, they should be encouraged to follow the lead of the House of Representatives and the Senate in being transparent in the use of public funds.
But Mr. President, I totally agree with our good minority leader because even though they are a corporate-like entity that has that has their own board and they approve their own budget, nevertheless, in the spirit of transparency, those entities should also publish their important financial records, Mr. President. I believe that because the national government is implementing what they call the transparency seal. If you go to the website, Mr. President, may transparency seal. They upload all of the important financial documents so that the public can look at those financial documents. I believe that all government entities, including GOCCs like PAGCOR or PCSO, they're required to upload through the transparency seal, Mr. President. But we will take your suggestion seriously, Mr. President, and see how we can come up with a bill that will require these agencies also to at least send information to the Senate. No?
In that case, can I count on your support when we tackle the FOI bill?
Yes, Mr. President, I am one of those who believe in that measure, Mr. President.
Very good. Thank you very much then. Just one final question. Will there be any penalties for agencies that fail to comply or are delayed in their compliance?
Well, Mr. President, since this will be the coverage of this bill is the Senate and the House of Representatives, Mr. President. So we have our own administrative mechanism to penalize those who do not follow this resolution, Mr. President. Admittedly, Mr. President, after approving this resolution, it is now the offices of our respective Congresses that will operationalize here this resolution. For example, Mr. President, the LBRMO will be part of this operationalization. The Bills and Index, the IT office of our Senate will be part of this because they'll be the ones digitalizing the information, uploading the information. So all of these offices now will be mandated after approval of this resolution, Mr. President.
But your answer is a polite no.
Well, Mr. President, pag may hindi sumunod dito sa atin, ay meron naman tayong administrative mechanism. Pwede naman silang mamemohan o ma-suspend o ma-penalize, Mr. President. What's important now is there's a legal basis for these offices to follow. No, yun ang importante.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to our minority
gentleman
leader.
from the city of Valenzuela. I look forward to the period of amendments. I will propose an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. We welcome
Thank
the amendments, Mr. President, so that we will have a complete and holistic measure, Mr. President. I thank you.
Thank you, Minority Leader. Yes,
Mr.
Majority
President,
Leader.
next to interpolate is the distinguished gentleman from the great province of Cavite, no other than Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Ping Lacson is recognized to interpolate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the good sponsor of Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 4, the distinguished gentleman from Valenzuela, yield to just a couple of questions, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President, I would be, again, it's an honor to receive questions from, I call Senator Ping the budget hawk of the Senate. Talagang hawk-like yung kanyang pagmamonitor ng budget.
Thank you, Mr. President. My first question is, what is the legal effect of a concurrent resolution as compared to a law passed by Congress?
Well, Mr. President, the concurrent resolution will bind both houses, Mr. President. It's true that the law can also bind both houses, but in this case, since this is a resolution, it's expressing as well as binding both houses in the recommendations that are laid forth in this resolution, Mr. President.
And the legal effect of a law passed by Congress is?
The legal effect of the law is
It binds even the
houses.
public. It's binding on the public as well as the
yes, Mr.
houses of Congress.
correct, Mr. President. In this
So-
case, it's only both houses that are bound. Mr.
It is
President.
more institutionalized. I mean the law.
Yes, Mr. President, correct.
I asked that question because I filed Senate Bill 32
Yes, Mr.
in
President.
the 20th Congress. It was referred to your committee, Committee on Finance, and secondarily to the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation.
Correct, Mr.
And I hope we can collaborate
Yes, Mr. President.
to schedule a hearing forthwith.
Yes, Mr. President. You have my guarantee on that measure, Mr. President. I took a look very quickly on that measure, and it's a very good measure that empowers the public, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a matter of fact, this is the 5th time that I'm filing this measure. I filed it in the 14th, 15th, 17th, and 18th Congress. Unfortunately, hindi po lumalabas sa committee. Walang committee report. So I'm glad that there is now this concurrent resolution being sponsored by unanimously
Yes.
by all the members of this house, of this body. So anyway, my second question is, will the uploading of documents as mentioned on page 4 and enumerated on lines 3 to 26, particularly the written individual amendments submitted by members of the House of Representatives and the Senate to the respective chairpersons, House Committee or the House Committee on Appropriations and the Senate Committee on Finance. Yung po ba kasama rin sa ma-upload ng mga dokumento? Kasi ang practice po natin, even in the House, pa second reading pa lang, may bulungan na. Hindi na take up sa plenary. Hindi po ba ganyan ang ating naging practice? Because it's too tedious, I understand. Because if we entertain all individual amendments on the floor, baka hindi tayo matapos. So, for exigency, para ma-facilitate, ang ginagawa na lamang natin, nagsasabit ng mga individual amendments sa chairman or sa chairperson ng Senate Finance Committee. But ang question ko po is, pati ba yun i-upload natin sa website?
But Mr. President, since the committee report of the GAB from the Senate side will be uploaded, we will now see the changes, Mr. President. Makikita natin in to from, Mr. President. So, in other words, we will now have the ability to look at the changes on a very granular basis per PAP, per office, even sub-offices, Mr. President. Makikita na natin ngayon, Mr. President.
I understand that, Mr. President. Ang problema lang doon is hindi natin malaman kung sino ang sponsor or proponent ng amendments.
But, Mr.
If we
President,
upload it, then we will be able to identify and we can point back to the proponent or proponents of the amendments.
Yeah.
That's my concern. That's why I ask if written submissions of amendments will also be uploaded, so we can identify from both houses, the House and the Senate, sino yung nag-insert, sino yung nag-realign ng or sino nag-introduce ng amendment para madali makita. Kasi sa ngayon bulag po tayo lahat . Nakita lang natin bumukol sa isang district, from say 200 million, bigla na lang naging 15 billion, and we cannot identify. We cannot point to the district representative simply because yung iba nagpa-park. And this is a common practice. We all know that, particularly yung mga party list representatives, wala naman silang distrito. What they're doing is, pakipark nga dyan, pero sa akin yan. So, yun po yung point ko. Kaya gusto ko, uploaded natin with proper identification ng mga proponents. So, I go back to my previous question. Will it include the written submissions of amendments ng individual members, particularly individual amendments, Mr. President?
well, Mr. President, we had a long discussion on that. I consulted the technical staff, LBMRO, and some of our experienced technical staff. And the way I understand it, Mr. President, some of the amendments evolve over time. And at the same time, Mr. President, when someone makes an amendment, for example, nagdagdag sila, Mr. President, typically it's the chairman that looks for the source para dagdagan yung magbabawas sa iba. And at the same time, the amendments also evolve. Like for example, nababawasan, or just to have the same effect, it's moved to another PAP or moved to another office. So in other words, Mr. President, the original amendment that might not be the same with the final product.
Nevertheless, Mr. President, all I want is to trace back to the proponent or proponents, no matter how many proponents there are. If these are amendments to the amendments, then fine. But we have to be able to identify kung sino po yung proponent or proponents ng amendments. Can we do that, Mr. President? Kasi we are for full transparency.
Yeah.
The best or the most genuine transparency is full transparency. Kasi kung hindi rin full transparency, parang ano tawag dyan? Ayoko sabihin ng lolokohan, ano? Pero hindi rin fully transparent eh. It will defeat the purpose, Mr. President. Because what we should know or identify, yung proponent, kasi naandun po yung taguan eh. Pagka hindi ma-identify, back to the proponent or proponents of the amendment or amendments, ano, kanya-kanya tayo singitan na naman dyan, Mr. President.
Well, Mr. President, that's why when we were discussing that internally and I was consulting with the technical staff, because of that complication, my alternative is to make sure that the third reading, the committee report, Mr. President. Surprisingly, to be honest, for mga ordinary bills, diba, Mr. President, yung mga committee report, ina-upload natin. The third reading version, ina-upload natin. But surprisingly, in the budget, we don't upload the third reading report as well as the committee report. So there's no way to track the changes. So in other words, Mr. President, when we were analyzing the situation, just to avoid complexity in terms of tracking down the documents, we will now upload the committee report. And doon sa committee report, nandun na lahat, Mr. President.
But we
all the final changes
we
will
won't be
there.
able to identify the proponent of the amendment. Unlike in an ordinary measure or bill that we tackle, everything is recorded. Everything is tackled on the floor, including individual amendments. Kasi nandyan, may minutes tayo. Ang problema sa budget deliberation, nag-iisang measure, pinaka-importanting measure, maski wala na tayong maipasang batas, ito, must pass talaga ito. Ang problema, hindi nga transparent. Kaya na-embolden yung mga ibang, mga ibang congressmen or even senators na magsingit ng kung ano na. Anyway, hindi naman matrace sa akin yan eh. That's my concern, Mr. President.
Yeah, I get
if we want to be transparent, let's be fully transparent.
I get the I acknowledge that Senator Ping has been tracking down the budget
Ang
for a
hirap
very
po
long
maghanap
time.
pagka nagre-review, pagka by budget deliberation. Hirap na hirap po kami ng staff namin. Pag naghahanap ako sa yung previous year's budget, napakahirap. Pero kung merong record ako kung kanino nanggaling yung amendment, mas madali ho maghanap.
Yeah. Well, Mr. President, I am thinking kasi of the entire budget process. And I'm anticipating, for example, one of the vice chairmen will recommend. And nakikita ko kasi minsan ang recommendation, kadalasan recommendation pataas eh, hindi ho pababa.
Never mind. As long as we identify the proponent, then that's fine with me.
So the complication that we see based on my consultation is how do we attribute the amendment, the specific amendment, if there are other amendments that will happen to enforce or to operationalize that amendment.
Then let's track them, Mr. President.
Yung pagkuha ng pondo.
Kung ilan yung nag-amend sa amendment at in-amend yung amendment, at least we can backtrack.
I get the point, Mr. President. It's just
It's not really difficult, Mr. President. If we want to do it, it's not really difficult. Because if we upload all the amendments, even amendments to the amendments to the amendments, hindi mahirap i-upload yun, Mr. President.
Yeah,
Especially written amendments, hindi yung amendments on the floor.
I get the point of.
Thank you.
It's good.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It's just when we were discussing it. Actually, we talked about that. To be honest about it, Mr. President, it's just how how
Tutulong po ako, Mr. President.
you
Kung paano natin gagawin.
how you track down the amendments. Kasi minsan isang amendment po, may dalawang modification, tatlong modification. That's the complication that I
Well,
see, Mr. President.
At least we can backtrack and identify kung sino yung nag-modify. Sabi ko nga, amendment to the amendments, and that's allowed.
Yes, correct, Mr. President.
So why can't we upload everything?
Sometimes the chairman, in this case, the chairman will also amend that amendment.
And then,
Mr.
so
President.
be it. Let's identify that the chairman also amended the amendment.
Well, take note of the proposal. We'll study, Mr. President. It's just how to operationalize it. That's yun ang naging ano namin, naging
So it seems that it is not acceptable because sa period of individual amendments, mukhang isa yan sa mga i-introduce ka amendment. Eh kung ngayon pa lang rejected na, baka hindi ko
naman, Mr. President. It's just how I'm thinking ahead how to operationalize that, Mr. President.
Let's work on it, Mr.
Yes,
President.
Mr. President. I'll be more than happy to
Yeah.
work with His Honor, Mr. President.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. The gentleman from San Juan and Zambales.
Thank you, Senator Lacson. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, next to interpolate is the distinguished lady from Ilocos Norte, Senator Amy Marcos. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Amy Marcos recognized to interpolate.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President, Majority Leader. And if the good sponsor, Senator Gatchalian, will allow, a few observations, please.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to point out that in the last page of the concurrent resolution, page 4, specifically number 3 of the operative clause, it mentions that the Senate shall upload number 3, A, B, C, and I'd like to highlight D, GAB passed on third reading by the Senate. Just to point out and make it very clear, we are only approving here in the Senate the amendments to the General Appropriations Bill. We are the approving body, but we receive it from the House of Representatives, which actually prepares the GAB. The role of the Senate, therefore, is to propose and approve amendments to the GAB, not the original GAB. I just want to be very careful so as not to mislead or confuse the public as to the role of this chamber versus the other chamber. So that perhaps if there is room for amendment, a more precise language would be in number 3A, D, line 26, page 4, instead of GAB passed on third reading by the Senate, it should read amendments to the GAB as approved by the Senate on third reading.
Yes, Mr. President.
I propose.
Yes, Mr. President, we acknowledge that the language might not be the accurate language to reflect the approval of the Senate, that the Senate is only approving the amendments to the GAB,
Amendments to
Mr.
the
President.
GAB.
So we acknowledge that, and at the proper time, Mr. President, we would welcome Her Honor's amendments, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you. There being no further amendments from my part or interpolations, I would also like to lend my concurrence and wholehearted support behind this initiative and concurrent resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Marcos. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, last to interpolate is Senator Dante Marcoleta. I move that he be recognized.
Senator Marcoleta is recognized to interpolate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I hope my friend is still able to accommodate a few questions.
Yes, Mr. President, to my idol, my campaign partner in last 2022.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am one of the supporters of this concurrent resolution, Mr. President. But my only concern are the practical issues that might all be the concern of our people. Like when we say public access or public participation, how much can we give to our people? Because we might not be able to manage people's expectation. There's so many information that we have itemized in these concurrent resolutions. We have not yet, for example, enacted
this freedom of information bill, and of course there is a twin bill in that, the right of reply. We may be raising people's expectation unnecessarily by citing the Constitution, people's right to information, especially on the transactions, the fields of transactions, and then we will put that limitation as provided by law. Mr. President, the senators are national representatives, our people. The House of Representatives is comprised of more than 300 district representatives and party lists. They too are elected representatives of our people. In this concurrent resolution, we are admitting, although impliedly, that our mandate of safeguarding the people's money needs people's participation. Parang hindi kompleto. Ba't kailangan pa naming tulungan kayo? You were there, you were elected. Baka hindi po, kaya baka isipin sa atin ng tao yan, Mr. President. Nandiyan na nga kayo eh. Now you are making a concurrent resolution. It is as if that you cannot do your job fully. Hindi naman sa ayaw naming tulungan kayo. We are always ready to help you. The people are also interested in guarding the people's money. Pero saan ba kami talaga makakatulong sa inyo? Pagdating sa... Kasi po, ako po bilang isang naging congressman, Mr. President, may access na po ako sa information. Like... bago po ako mag-graduate sa House, ito pong pinakahuling budget, 2025 budget. Mr. President, when we were already on the first day of plenary debates, alam po ninyo, yung unang subject matter sa first day on plenary debates, ito po yung general principles. Wala pa pong agencies, Mr. President. I was about to ask some questions on the parameters set out by our national economic cluster. Hindi po ako nakapagtanong, Mr. President. A battalion of my colleagues prevented me from asking questions. So, Mr. President, kung ako po ay nandun na mismo, gusto kong magtanong man lang ng ilang tanong, hindi pa po ako nakapagtanong eh. Paano kaya po yung mga kababayan natin? How do we assure them? We wanted to give them a level of expectation, Mr. President. How do we do it? Paano natin sila pagbibigyan ng yung participation will be heard, it will be recognized, it will be vetted, kagaya po ng tinatawag ni Senator Soto kanina. Interesado siya rin na talagang malaman talaga. Talaga bang madidinig? Yan po ang gusto kong itanong, Mr. President.
Well, Mr. President, in the resolution, we also required that both houses should come up with a feedback mechanism, Mr. President. Kasi nga, you're absolutely correct, His Honor, that the information will be out there. People will be encouraged to look at the different details of the of our budget, and they will do their own analysis. But they have no way of reaching out to the senators. They have no way of reaching out to their representatives. There's no way for them to send their feedbacks. So that's why in this resolution we also included a platform through their websites that people can now send their feedbacks, Mr. President. So it comes full circle. The information is there, but we also receive information. So that is the concept, Mr. President, that we are envisioning.
That will be going back to my original question, Mr. President. Kasi sasabihin sa akin nung public, Ano ba yung pwede kong gawin na hindi mo pwedeng gawin? Nandiyan ka eh. Nakabantay ka nga dyan eh. Ang gusto kong malaman, sabi niya, Mr. President, yung hindi mo kayang gawin, kami nang gagawa. Yun ang exactly na gusto ko sana malaman kasi yung tao po naghihintay. Gusto rin nilang tumulong siguro, bakit naman hindi? But what are those things? What are those information that they themselves should access that we cannot do?
Well, Mr. President, like for example, meron ba tayong slide? Yung my X-check? Can you flash it? Mr. President, I'll flash a slide, no? And when we were doing the analysis of the process, we found out that only the NEP and the GAA is publicly available through the website, Mr. President. So if you are, let's say, a budget analyst, no? You want to analyze the budget, ito, Mr. President, only the NEP and the GAA is available in the internet. All the rest of the documents in between are not available. So if you want to analyze the budget, especially the movements, it's very difficult for analysts to track the movements because those information is not available in their website. So yun yung gagawin natin available, Mr. President. That the movement in the budget, especially critical documents, will be uploaded as mandated by the two houses, Mr. President.
And each of the senators of this republic, Mr. President, is in a position to secure the assistance of a budget analyst.
Not necessarily, Mr. President. People expect us to know the basic of the budget process and budget analysis. Of course, not all of us come from the same background, but the public expect us to know at least the basics, Mr. President.
That is the point, Mr. President. Ako po, dahil neophyte ako, I would expect a lot of assistance from my staff, mga kaibigan po namin na makakatulong sa pag-a-analyze ng budget. Importante
Correct,
po
Mr.
kasi
President.
ito. So sasabihin sa akin nung mga kabarangay ko halimbawa, which constitute a small portion of the public, bakit mo pa kailangan itong mga barangay mo? Meron kang mga staff na doon na mag-a-analyze dyan, matutulungan ka. Siguro hindi na kami kailangan sapagkat kami napakarami rin naming problema. Tsaka mas meron kayong paraan at saka kayo may mga tao din kayo na talagang tutulong sa inyo. Parang sa kanila ay kalabisan na. Parang hindi kami masyadong makakatulong dahil sa kayo naman ay merong karanasan at kung wala naman ay talagang maraming tutulong din sa inyo para pagtulong-tulungan yung pag-a-analyze ng budget without the people themselves. Except, for example, in other instances like the academe, talaga naman pong nakakatulong yan.
Yes.
At talagang nandyan naman po sila talaga.
Yes.
Not necessarily the general public.
Yes.
Ano po?
Tama, Mr. President. In fact, typically, even here in the Senate, we engage the academe quite often, especially those who are involved in, let's say, public governance or political science. Parte ho yan ng kanilang mga aralin, Mr. President. So, in other words, we can also tap the academe to help analyze the budget. The budget is it's a very complex document and ang dami hong detalye. So if we can engage the academe to also participate in the analysis and help give us fruitful recommendations that can form part of our process, Mr. President.
Yun pong 2025 budget, Mr. President, gusto ko po sanang gawing isang halimbawa ito. Nung matapos po yung BICAM, ako po ay member pa ng House of Representatives. Natanggap ko po yung BICAM report. Kung hindi po ako nagkakamali, mga December 6 po yun, 2025, but about 6:35 in the evening. So napakakapal po yun, siguro about 400 pages, if I'm not mistaken. I tried my best na sundan po talaga, pero given the limited time, kasi masyado nang seguido po yun eh. Ang napagtunan ko na lamang po ng pansin, yung pinakahuli, Mr. President, I'm referring to the special provision in the BICAM report. Napansin ko po talaga, there were about 12 or 13 pages containing about 28 blanks. So ang ginawa ko po, Mr. President, ay tinignan ko po, pinagsikapan ko pong hanapin kung merong instruction na nandun nakalagay, like I was expecting that an annex is appended in the report where the material particulars that will be accomplished to fill up the blanks, the instruction to fill each and every blank in every page, sana nandoon yung, for example, on page 22 halimbawa, this is supposed to be the figure that will be written para maka-accomplish po yun. In other words, di ko po alam kung nagkamali ako, but I was unable to find a particular page signed by the conferees o ordering somebody, for example, the administrative staff of the House of Representatives or whoever was assigned to fill up those 28 blanks na nandun naman talaga halimbawa po and pinirmahan, okay na rin siguro sa akin yun because hindi tayo mawawala because each blank has been designated with a particular data na ilalagay po sa blank. Wala po eh. So I was asking, nagpunta po ako sa office ng Secretary General. Nagbabakasakali po na makahingi ng makita yung enrolled bill because sa ating tuntunin, I think even in the Senate, meron pong 3 or 4 copies na naiiwan po sa either the Senate or the House of Representatives. The problem is, wala naman akong access. Ito yung pinag-uusapan natin eh. Because I need to know, sino yung nag-fill up? Kasi po, nung ito'y submit na sa Office of the President in the form of enrolled bill, 4 na po yung signatories doon, Mr. President. Eh. The Speaker, and the Secretary General, the Senate President, and the Senate Secretary. Yung blank po sa pinakahuli, ay po ang para sa Pangulo na po. Doon na sa pipirma. So yung enrolled bill, kompleto na po yung detalye, but it did not tell the whole story as to who filled up and what is supposed to be filled up in all those material particulars. So yun pong public access natin, yung taong tutulong sa atin, paano po mapiprevent yung mga ganong pangyayari?
Well, Mr. President, thank you for that question. In fact, I raised that to our technical team here in the Senate that those things should not happen in the 2026 budget. Not under my watch, Mr. President. That the members will be given blank materials to sign, Mr. President. I reminded them to be very strict in the review. Kung kailangan po 2, 3, 4 times to review the documents before letting the members sign, they should do it, Mr. President. So that's a strong reminder to the technical staff, Mr. President. So I know that narinig ko rin yan, Mr. President, during the last budget season, Mr. President. I'm not very sure on the details, Mr. President. Personally, I didn't see any blank items, at least sa akin, Mr. President. But since that is an issue that came out, so I reminded our technical staff to be very detailed in scrutinizing the budget materials, Mr. President, especially the ones we will be signing, Mr. President.
Thank you for your assurance, Mr. President. Kanina po, nilapitan ako ni Senator Ping. Pagtulungan natin, sabi niya. Thank you, Mr. President.
Tulungan o pagtulungan?
Thank you, Senator Marcoleta.
Thank you,
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, with no other reservation to interpret, I move to close the period of interpellation.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Ay, mga
I move to open the period of amendments and recognize the sponsor, Senator Gatchalian, and to introduce amendments, and likewise senators, of course, our minority floor leader and Senator Lacson to follow.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved. Senator Gatchalian?
Yes, Mr. President, a few of our colleagues submitted their amendments, Mr. President, so I will just read them. And then those, our colleagues of ours who wants to propose their amendments can also propose after, Mr. President. So I'll go ahead, Mr. President, so that it will be an orderly process. On page 2, line 17, delete the phrase acronym.
Page
delete
1, wala.
the-
Page 1, you don't have any amendments?
Wala, Mr. President. So on page 2, line 17, delete the phrase and acronym General Appropriations Act and replace it with General Appropriations Bill, open close parenthesis GAB. So move, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Still on page 17. Wait,
Page 17? Wala na yun.
sorry. Still on line 17. Yan. Still on line 17, delete the phrase
Yun eh.
and acronym General Appropriations Bill and replace it with GAB. So move, Mr. President.
Replace it with?
GAB.
GAB.
G-A-B.
All right. Any objection?
So
There being none, amendments approved.
on line 20, delete the acronym GAA and replace it with GAB. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Still on line 20, after the word deliberations, insert the phrase number seven, amendments to the GAB approved on third reading by the Senate, semicolon, and renumber the succeeding phrase accordingly. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
On line 22, after the word votes, delete the phrase of the Senate and House version and replace it with on the GAB. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
On line 30, delete the acronym JA and replace it with General Appropriations Act. So move, Mr. President.
Line 31? 30.
Line 30.
30?
On line 30.
31 maybe?
31 ba? Sorry, Mr. President.
31? Are we on the same frequency?
Sorry, Mr. President, I stand corrected. On line 31,
Yeah.
delete the acronym JA and replace it with General Appropriations Act. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Okay. These are the amendments from Senator Risa, Mr. President.
All right.
On page 3, on line 28, insert a new whereas clause, which shall read as follows. Whereas, to ensure full accountability and public understanding of legislative changes to the national budget, it is imperative to provide a detailed comparative matrix of the General Appropriations Bill as it progresses through the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the Bicameral Conference Committee, highlighting all amendments, semicolon. So moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, the amendments approved.
On line 6, delete subparagraph A.
Same page.
On page 4, line 6, delete subparagraph A and re-letter the subparagraph accordingly.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
On line 10, subparagraph C, after the word votes, delete the phrase of the Senate and House version and replace it with on the GAB. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
On line 7, delete the word passed and replace it with approve. I so move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
On line 10, after the word votes, delete the phrase of the Senate and House.
We just mentioned it earlier. We have already approved it.
Mulit na. Okay. Sorry, Mr. President. Ito. Okay to. On line 10, after the word gab, delete the period and replace it with a semicolon end. So move, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
The following, Mr. President, are amendments from Senator Lauren Legarda. On line 11, insert a new paragraph D